على سيدنا محمد رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's great to be here, alhamdulillah, in this neck of the woods, mashallah, where everybody's Miami Heat fans because your team is so bad. Just had to loosen that up a little bit. So, as he mentioned, I'm actually Imam in Boston, Islamic Society Boston Cultural Center, New England's largest mosque in Roxbury, Massachusetts, not in Cambridge. And the experience that we had, I'll just share quickly. Number one, we were not persecuted. You know, someone asked me today, oh gosh, our Boston Muslims okay? Everything must be horrible for you. And that was actually a narrative that we strategically fought, I would say, rather aggressively. We would run into people from the press who wanted to portray Muslims as being under siege, even though we weren't under siege. And we need to be very careful that we don't play the wimp card. So that was one of our strategies, that we knew we had built relationships within the mayor's office, with the governor's office, with other faith leaders, even with the atheist community, that would carry us through the storm by the grace of Allah. And those relationships had been invested up to around 20 years back. So there had been a really strong communal investment by the Muslim community in Boston that really empowered us to not have kind of the backlash. There were a few incidents, but by and large, nothing happened. Boston was an incredible city. The support of the city, I've never seen really anything like it before. The second thing that we did is, from the moment that it happened, we developed a strategy that would empower an American Muslim narrative. And that was that we would not speak like Chacha Sahabs. And I say that with all respect to Chacha Sahabs. And what we mean is that we wouldn't come on TV and tell everyone, you know what, we're Americans, we're Americans, we're Americans, we're Americans. Dude, look at me, I'm a freaking American, bro. Okay? So what we did say is we're Bostonians. And we spoke as Bostonians, as baysitters, and that was extremely empowering for our own community and created a narrative of being part of the city. It also empowered us to use what we actually labeled a word for it, the language of otherness. We did not use the language of otherness. We approached it with a language of togetherness, which was also very powerful. The third thing that we did is we trained around 14 people professional media training. And let me just say this, that the number of young professional volunteers from every state in America that helped us out through media training, through writing editorials, stuff even like IT work, monitoring my Wikipedia page, which is being changed every day by some people who are adding a new chapter about my radicalization or whatever, you name it. And I'll say this, these were not people who claim to be Sufis or Salafis. These were Muslim women who wear skirts. These were people who don't wear hijab. These were brothers who, if you saw them, you might question their religious commitment. But I'll say this, they were the most down community during the crisis. Those people who are out arguing about what type of tawheed gets you in the paradise, and if you have a sheikh, are you going to go to hell or not, they were nowhere to be found. And I say that with all respect. The biggest troublemakers in our community disappeared. And young men and women that we never knew of now are permanent members of our community. And they really, I mean, across the board, Sister Fatima, you know, who just called me and said, listen, I'm going to put you in touch with Mark and Peter. They're going to train you for an hour before you go on CNN. I was like, what the heck is training? Like kettlebell training? She's like, no, you have to do some media training before you go on Piers Morgan. That's why the interview came out so well. Don't think, oh wow, these guys are extremely talented. There was this incredible orchestra of young people, some of them affluent, some of them from the hood, who just volunteered and really helped us to look good. And the fourth was that the elders in our community, I say this with wonderful respect to the elders and stuff, they got out of the way. And that was extremely important, that they gave the younger leadership in our community enough room to experiment and even make mistakes. So that really is what pulled Boston through. There was statistics coming out now that the lowest reaction to any quote-unquote terrorism act related to the Muslim community, the amount of negative reaction was the lowest after Boston compared to anything else that's ever happened. And we believe that was because we did not speak as though we're Muslims, you're Americans, we suck, we're sorry. But we spoke as just regular people. We employed that language. So it was an incredible experience. I mean, it was, I would never imagine I would have to tip off the press. It was like running a million miles an hour. I actually had to do like Muslimgate. You know, there was a neoconservative newspaper that was looking for the Imam who solemnized the marriage between their Suhaib brother and his sister, and I found out that that newspaper, basically the New York Post of Boston, aka the Boston Herald, aka the Dajjal, they were out looking for this Imam, and what I did is I actually called the Boston Globe and said, I have a tip for you. I've never imagined, please get this Imam before the Boston Herald does. The pace that we worked at would not have been accomplished without people like these young folks in this gathering today. And that's why I say what I learned from Boston is that our communities really need to start moving out of the way with all respect and allowing the younger generation to be empowered and contributive in a very, very learning type fashion, not just restricting everything. And that's what pulled us through. That's what pulled us through.
So, the question, it's a follow-up question to this. You're not done. I'm going to fly you out from Boston just to get a 3 minutes.
Try to watch the game tonight, bro.
So, a question, is there a problem of violent extremism in the Muslim community? Let's be real. Real talk.
I think that there's the potential for that problem, yes. I think we're all aware of Islamic awakening. Go look at that website, search Yasser Qadi, search my name, search Imam Hamza, search America, and just see what kind of stuff comes up. I think there's always been, with any theology or with any ideology, there's always going to be a group of people who cling to it in a certain fashion. From the time of the Prophet, Khawarij, this is nothing new. We have tashaddud in our religion, which is hyper-conservatism. We have tasahu, which is the opposite, which is hyper-liberalism, right? And we're called ummatan wasata, in the middle. And the Prophet said that in the very beautiful prophetic tradition. He said, be careful of extremism in religion. Iyyakum al-ghulu fi ad-din. And here it means either hyper-conservative or hyper-liberal. And that's a reality in our community that needs to be addressed. We have to acknowledge it. It's not a large reality, but it's very impactful. You know, one person can do something crazy and our entire community suffers for it. And that's the reality that we're dealing with, that a few people could take something upon themselves and really wreak havoc upon our community.